Good morning, grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, blenderhd on the Twitter. And this is the show where we go over a little bit of last night. We go over a little bit of today's slate, today's six-game slate. Is anything going to happen? Oh, something always happens, right? Even last night. I mean, everything happens every day. Right? You plan your lineups. It's 11 in the morning. No point. No, just no point. There's no point to it all. I'm very nihilistic this morning. Just why do we bother playing? Why do we bother? I didn't even play last night. Last night I didn't play. I had a personal thing to take care of. I wasn't going to be at my computer at lock. And it's NBA DFS. If you're not gonna be at your computer all night, you can't play. I mean you can. You're gonna be at a disadvantage. I don't want to be on my phone, like trying to use lineup HQ and mobile and changing things out. So I just decided I'll take a night off, right? It's okay. You could skip slates. It's perfectly fine. There are people that always ask, oh, well, if I can't be at my computer during NBA DFS when there's 7 million different start times and 14,000 people on the injury report, is it going to put me at a disadvantage? Yes, it will. Yeah, it will. Can you still win without doing so? Yes. Of course you can, but are you going to be put in? You're not going to. This guy's out. This guy's in the league. I mean, worst case scenario, you have to global swap people out, right? Oh, this guy, I guess he's going to be. He's not going to play. So I got to take Jeremy Grant out of my lineups and put someone else in, so at least I get points. Okay, but if you're not going to then rearrange based on if he's out, that means this guy does well, and then switch your lineups around. If you're not going to be on your computer, I do most of my stuff on desktop. So on the phone, I enter contests, but as far as managing lineups, I'm going to do it on desktop. And if I'm not going to be there, I can't play. So what the hell happened last night? I don't know. You have to tell me. Tell me in the YouTube chat what was tilting you last night. I know we had the Spurs. We had the Aldridge played, but he didn't start. Right? Something happened like that. I got the notifications on the RG app because that's what I always do. If you want to make sure you're down with the news, you get the RG app. Get the RotoGrinders app from the App Store. I think the Google Play Store, right? I have an iPhone. I guess it's available on Android as well. And you set the notifications. You put the notification preferences on NBA. There's 3 different options, right? So you could get just the urgent news. Then you could get important news. What's the difference between the two? I don't know. The urgent is starting lineups and this guy's out, that type of stuff. Just turn it on and the news comes to you. Just, within a minute of the news being released, we have an update out. So I saw the updates, just I didn't have any lineups to switch. So you tell me in the YouTube chat what tilted you last night. I see you guys in there. Alexander Malchow, Matt Mears, Card Fan, Apocalypse, Chandler Cannon, Dario Rosenstock, Kevin Brunson. I see all you guys in there. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up for the apple juice. Keeping it cold. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live in the morning. But I don't know what tilted everyone last night. I'll look through results DB, but the nuances of the slate I wasn't that aware of because obviously I wasn't involved in it. So that's why I could look and go, why was Trey Lyles chalky? Well, I mean he was in the starting lineup, right? We saw right because Aldridge didn't start and didn't they start Samanic, Lucas Samanic, right? It's Pop. It's the Spurs. I said yesterday morning. It's okay. I guess we're playing Spurs chalk, and you're going to play Lonnie Walker and Murray and Patty Mills, and how did that work out? I mean, Murray worked out. Lonnie Walker, I mean, they were cheap, so I mean, I guess he was chalky, but he only put up 22 points. Patty Mills, 21 points. I mean, I guess. I mean, if you got enough points elsewhere, I mean, Samanic only scored 8.5. Trey Lyles 19.25, but he was cheap. So I mean, I don't know. Did the Spurs chalk get there? Is that considered getting there for last night's slate? Because Allen had a game, 61 points. Saban Lee got there again, right? Because he was still cheap enough. They didn't raise his price that much. Because Jeremy Grant was out. It didn't matter. I don't think it mattered for Saban Lee. But people played Dumboya because he was in the starting lineup. He ended up with only 8 points. Plumlee did okay, right? But it's the Pistons. The Pistons are horrible. So that's what you had to rely on. A horrible team in the Pistons, and then Greg Popovich with the Spurs. Oh, here's the starting lineup. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Who knows who's going to play, how much, how many minutes, or whatever. Rudy Gay goes off for 70,000 points for no apparent reason, right? And that's what happens there. So maybe yesterday, if I did play GPPs, I wouldn't have gone as heavy on the Spurs guys, but there wasn't really that much value. I mean, Sadiq Bey, you didn't get there. I mean, it seemed like were there a lot of blowouts yesterday? So I was scrolling through before when I was setting everything up. I was like, who scored a lot of points? And I'm looking through and I'm like, Jason Tatum had 19.75. Did the Celtics get blown out? I have to assume so, right? Shai had a good game. Trey had a good game. Wall didn't get there again for his price. Ingram was fine. Draymond, okay, 47.75. Curry seemed to have, a decent game for his salary, almost 50 points. But like LeBron only put up like 30, right? Did the Lakers get blown out? Did something happen there? I have no idea. That's why I said I don't know. Anthony Edwards, 45 points. He just comes out of the blue and scores a ton for no apparent reason every once in a while. Chris Paul. So yeah, it seems like a lot of the single-digit owned guys gave you a lot of points for contrarian players, right? If you mixed in, I don't know what value you would have mixed in, but I mean, we have a lot of Jimmy Butler, 62 points. Yeah, you could have built a great lineup with a lot of single-digit owned players. Chris Paul, Mike Conley at 40 points. Even Tristan Thompson for his price, he was good at 32. Dennis Smith Jr. finally had a game. 31.75 points when no one was playing. Right? He was massive chalk the other day, right? And then no one plays him now, and he gets 31 points. And Saban Lee actually had less points, but I mean, still 28, so that's still fine. So I don't know what tilted you last night. Still hard to see, like, what chalk failed. I mean, Towns did okay. I guess the Celtics. I guess that was the big thing. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like, they killed you. Lonnie, all the cheap guys, I can't say are duds. I mean, Josh Jackson, he had a good game. Capella was kind of got 17% owned. He didn't have a game. Wendell Carter was better. Domantas Sabonis was okay. I'm just going through. I'm reviewing it for myself. I don't know what happened last night, so that's why I'm looking. Looks like who was chalky, what was the constructions, what did people play? Because especially when you go over the slate, like earlier in the day, it's like, okay, Spurs, and then whatever, and then so you're not sure how to adjust, before lock when you're not building any lineups. So going through the YouTube chat, we see, Will's here. Chief Justice is in the house. Will Priester in the YouTube chat. Tyler Coleman says Tatum and Levine tanked my lineups. But what was it? A Celtics blow? I mean, I should look at the scores, right? NBA scores. I want to see what happened. What happened last night with the? Can you even tell with these scores? Yesterday, what happened with the Celtics? They get blown up by the Hawks. So I mean, that couldn't have been that close going to the end of the game with Tatum only with barely 20 points, right? Cavaliers. Okay, they beat the Rockets. Bulls, Timberwolves was an overtime game. Okay. And the Jazz looks like the Jazz blew out the Lakers. So there. Okay, so that makes sense. Pelicans, Pistons. Okay, now I get that many points that were scored in that game. The Warriors-Pacers game was close. Doesn't even all look that many close games other than this OT game. The Hornets, Suns. Maybe the Raptors, Heat, I guess, but they weren't very well owned. I have to review what happened last night. I mean, that's what I do at 11 o'clock in the morning every day, even if I didn't play the day before, right? Got to see what happened. Got to see what people are tilted about, right? Because if they're on a back-to-back, a lot of people are like, he burned me last night, can't play them tonight. So maybe the ownership goes down. So I got to check it out. Hank Reynolds says, had a bad cash day yesterday. What are some tips for making better cash lineups? Play the best projected median lineup that you can. It's not that complicated. The best projected players and try to make the best lineup out of them, right? You may have 14 players that could fit into a lineup in a multitude of ways. And the differences between those lineups are like a point. You could choose based on your projections to play whatever's the top one. You can do that. Or one that has maybe higher floor, a little narrower range of outcomes. But most of the time, there's a very small select like cash player pool. So identify. I mean, that's why you use projections. I mean, I could go in right now here. I mean, I even brought it up on the side. But based on our initial algorithmic, no one looked at them projections yet. Let's see. Then I'll refresh it just in case. Anyone come in the morning and started working on these? No, not yet. But based on the initial set, basically we're playing 2 of 3 of these guys: Jokic, Giannis, and Harden. You're probably playing 2 of them. I'm assuming with Rose and Quickly being projected well, that means that Elf Payton is out or is not going to play, is dead. Is he dead? I don't know. They announced something yesterday, but I mean, if he's not in the projections, I'm going to assume our projections team knows what they're doing. They just didn't forget about him. So that's going to bump up the Knicks, and they're playing the Kings. So that's a plus matchup. So you just look. I sort by RGV, and I see like who's here, who's the value. Okay, Quickly, and I mean obviously we have it marked. Andy Means, he's up early in the morning, marking the core plays to begin with, writing his article. That's for premium members. If you want to be a premium member, click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. But I would look like this. Obviously, I could run based on these projections what the optimal lineup is. Quickly, Rose, Barrett, Porter, Jokic, Augustine, Giannis, Lopez. Doesn't make me feel good. This lineup doesn't make me feel good, but mathematically, 290.21. It's the highest median lineup you could make. But if I build 20 lineups, I mean, you could choose. See, 20.20, 290.21, 289.16, so that's a drop in a point. There's a drop in a point and a half. About a point and a half. A little over a point and a half. Point and a half, right? Like 2 points. Like any of these are pretty. I mean, based on your projections, based on our projections, as of right now, the best median projected lineups. So, like the difference between these two, I mean, take a look here. I mean, what really is the difference? Burks. So basically, Burks over Rose. Okay. And you leave Burke. There's a 2v2 here, right? Because there's no Lopez. So it's Quickly, Burks, Barrett. Quickly, Rose, Barrett. Porter, Jokic. Oh, so you're playing Rose also. So basically, it's you're not playing Brook Lopez. So you're playing Burks over Brook Lopez. So that's the difference between these two lineups. If you go to this lineup, the next one looks kind of the same, but instead of playing RJ Barrett, you're playing Will Barton. And there you go, leaving 400 on the table. Here's one with Shake Milton. So it's basically you're playing Shake Milton over DJ Augustine. So you're not playing, you're doing something. What's the difference? Let's see. Let's go back up here. Porter, Augustine, Giannis. So RJ Barrett, Rose, Quickly. RJ Barrett, Rose, Quickly. Porter, Jokic. So you're playing Milton over Augustine. Augustine's 4,100. Okay. Now I had to see the prices. So like you see, there's not that much different. Here's a Harden lineup. So you're not playing Jokic. This is 288.35. So it's a point and a half difference. In the grand scheme of things, that isn't like dramatically that much. But you're playing Harden and Giannis. So you're not playing Jokic. And you're still fitting in DJ Augustine and Derrick Rose and Quickly, but you're not playing RJ Barrett. You're playing Will Barton. And here's the next line. Here's Nerlens Noel and Josh Hart. Right? All of these would be viable cash lineups based on currently at 11:15 in the morning with these projections that have not been adjusted manually by our projections team. But that's it. It's a math game. Cash games are math games. I mean, the whole thing. All of DFS is a math game. But cash games, you don't have to worry about leverage or correlation or much of that stuff. It's just fit as many points as they get for 50,000 in salary. And I just have to come in the top half, the top, 45% or whatever in a double up. You have to beat your head-to-head opponent. You have to beat one opponent. So you don't have to take risks or whatever. Just like as long as you get a good median score, you're good. When you're playing GPPs, a median score is nothing. Yeah, you have to get in the top 20% just to cash and get 1.5x or 2x. And then it goes up progressively from there. So you get paid more the higher that you score. But in double ups, cash games, You don't get paid more the more that you score. You score 7 million points. And your opponent scores 200. You get paid the same amount. So it's just a matter of just scoring more than them. You don't have to worry about, I need to put up as many points as I possibly can and beat everyone in the field. Like, no. Top half, top 45%, what 50-50s, double ups, triple ups, right? Wherever that payout line is, the difference between the first payout line and the top one is the same amount. $5 double up, you're gonna win $5. Oh, I scored 7,000 points. Like, no, coming first in a double up doesn't do you any good. So that's how you should be building lineups. But I mean, I use projections. So, like, to me, on my bankroll tracker, which obviously I didn't play yesterday. Of course, I had a bad day the day before, but still, on the season, across 3 sites with using a diversified strategy, like, yeah, DraftKings is down. Yeah, that is right. But Yahoo's up, FanDuel's massively up, but almost double my bankroll, my spreadsheet bankroll of 20,000 for this. And just do that every day. It's not that complicated. And there are nuances. If you don't want to play, if you look at the first lineup, I don't want to play. I don't want to play Michael Porter. Then just X him out and run into the lineup. Right? So you say, no, I'm not playing Michael Porter in cash. You X him out, and who shows up? Dante DiVincenzo. So you do it on the side. You may like, I prefer this lineup. Right? So I X'd him out, and look, this lineup is 288.16. That's 2 points off, median-wise. 2 points out of 290. Right? That's less than 1% of the amount of points. Now, over the long run, that percent may matter. Over the long run. But given the variance on one single slate, like, what's wrong with this? Is a cash lineup. There's nothing wrong with this. You don't have to play Augustine. You're playing starters, right? Like, I almost for like from a floor perspective, this may be a better lineup. Not having Michael Porter and playing quickly Rose Barrett. You're getting like most of the guard minutes for the Knicks. You're getting Giannis, Jokic, DiVincenzo, Barton, Lopez. Like, this is not a bad line. This is a perfectly fine cash lineup. You could play Michael Porter. Maybe decide that you instead of playing Giannis or Jokic, you want to play Harden. So you just lock him in and then run it. This is 288.35. It's that hard lineup that we saw before. And maybe you don't want to play Augustine off the bench or whatever. Or, I mean, he's starting now, but I mean, it's not like high usage or anything. So maybe, like, no, there's no way I'm playing DJ Augustine in cash. And I want to play Harden in cash. So you just reflect that and run it. 287.51. So, okay, now you're getting like almost 3 points off the optimal. It's not the end of the world. And then you go. You got Burks in there now. So it's like now you're trading Augustine for Burks. I mean, is that better? But I mean, it's viable, right? I'd rather not give up 2.5 to 3 median points in cash games. But if you think that this has a better floor, then play it. Or you don't play Harden. You take out Augustine and you run this and you get Milton, right? You get Milton instead. So it's the same lineup just with Milton. And you're like, I think Milton's safer than Augustine. Okay, then do it. 288.61. I mean, we're talking about a point and a half. So that cash game play in DFS is not complicated. If you have projections, I mean, it's not complicated. You don't have to project. Just tell me mathematically what the lineups make the most sense. For contests where there's no progressive payouts. Just give me, if I could hit all of these medians, I cash. There you go. That's pretty much how it works. And they're going to hit their medians, as you know in statistic, what a median is, 50% of the time. So if all my guys hit all their 50th percentile outcomes, most likely my lineup is going to cash. Most likely. That's my goal. I know we talk a little bit about cash games on this show, but there's not much more strategy to it. Like, there's not as much, maybe some late swap stuff with head-to-heads. There's like, what other tips can I give you? Trust your projections and just build the best lineup. There you go. Projections do all the hard work for you. So why not take advantage of it? Let's see. Going through the YouTube chat. Schmohawks says Tony Snell seemed obvious, but solo owned. Did Tony Snell did well? Didn't he start for Reddish? Wasn't Reddish out? Did Snell actually do? Oh, 26 points. Right. Some people had him, right? Hishbu, E. Hafner, Giant Squid. For Tony Snell, 26 points is a lot, right? That's a lot. He was probably cheap, right? He was like 3K or something. Tony Snell is never obvious. So I don't think to say that, oh, obviously you play Tony Snell over Lonnie Walker. It's Tony Snell. Tony Snell and PJ Tucker are like, they go hand in hand. Guys, oh, played 38 minutes, didn't record a stat. I mean, like, just doesn't record. Just like, how is that possible? No rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks, no nothing. Just minutes. 38 minutes. Nothing. And was like 0 for 2 shooting. Like, that's it. Like, how, I don't know how that happens. So, no, Tony Snell is never obvious. He's never obvious. Hog Lawrence DFS asks, do the truly elite cash players win more because they have better models, or do they make better other decisions? Probably a mix of both. Like I said before, like if you completely and utterly trust your model in the long run, just playing the top optimal whatever mathematical lineup, that should have the highest EV. But these don't. But remember, when you're running for median, you're not taking into account ownership. You're not taking into account any standard deviation for a player. Two players could have 20-point medians, but wildly different ranges of outcomes. 20-point median, and his range is 16 to 24. Narrow range, right? Oh, good. In that fat part of the curve, 16, 24, like very small, and then 20 in the middle. But a 20 median could also mean a player that goes from 6 to 34. Yeah, that's a 20 median also. But much more times he scores 6 or 34, a lot more, right? Much more volatility there. In cash games, do you need volatility? You want to limit your variance. So if you had a choice, but if those two players existed in the same position at the same price, at the same exact median, in cash games, you would prefer the one with the narrower range of outcomes. In GPP, you would prefer the one with the wider range of outcomes. Now, that's some stuff that you could probably pick up instinctually. You don't necessarily have to look at the range of outcomes in the projections. But maybe you sacrifice some median points to reduce your volatility. Minutes volatility. Guy that gets, you could have 20 minutes, but maybe he only plays 14 today, type of thing. Whereas median looks good for 20 minutes, but if he doesn't get 20 minutes, you're in trouble. So maybe you don't play that guy in cash games, even though he may be in the top one. But remember the optimizer, or just the knapsack problem. You could do it in Excel. Like it's just gonna look at the median points. That's it. That's all it's gonna look at, and try to jam as much in for 50,000 as it can. Doesn't take all these guys could be the most volatile players ever. They could dramatically 6, 24, 87, whatever. Probably not the best for cash games. So you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of very long-term EV, the difference between lineups of a half a point. Are you willing to sacrifice that little amount for more stability? Same thing for ownership. Like ownership doesn't necessarily matter. You don't need leverage in cash games. But let's say today, Derrick Rose is chalk, right? Or quickly or something like that. And the top lineup that you run doesn't have them in it. Maybe the second one does. Maybe the third one does, but not the top one. And he's going to be 80% owned. Maybe it's just better to block at that point. Because, you play the top one, Rose puts up a big game, and you're dead. Because 80% of the field have him. Right? Yet the lineup that's a half a point lower in median has him in it. So by default, you're like, well, the difference between these two lineups are marginal. Let me at least have the guy that's going to be 80% owned. So I don't get burned. In GPP, you would think the opposite way. Well, I hope he's 80% done, because if he doesn't do well, all those lineups are burned and I get to move up. But that works in progressive payout structures in GPPs, because you get paid more the more that you move up. Double ups, you just get to the cash line. You're fine. You don't have to move up. You don't have to get leverage. So that would be the difference. Cash players that could assess a slate and not, some just play the top. I have the projections, right? They just think in their head. I trust my projections. I think they're good. I think they're the most accurate. I'm just going to play whatever it tells me, right? Just mathematically to do. You can do that. That's still a viable lineup regardless. Then some people add the nuances of the volatility of players and the ownership and go, I think this is the best construction for floor and ceiling. This doesn't take into account the floor or anything. It's just the medians. That's it. Right? When you have guys that are coming off the bench that could play anywhere from 18 to 26 minutes, do you want to have to rely on that in your cash games? Maybe not. Maybe you may have no choice. Maybe that's just happens to be the best value, and that's the best choice. But if there's multiple choices that you can make, like who's better, Will Barton or RJ Barrett? Who knows? That's going to be close. Do you play quickly? Do you play both quickly in rows? Do you play all three, quickly, Rose, and Barrett? Do you not play Barrett? Do you play Porter? Because Porter could go all over the place also. Do you play DJ Augustine? So you could find lineups without any of those guys, at least one of those guys in it. And maybe it's better. This one has Nick Batum in it. Go down here. Here's a Robin Lopez lineup with Dante DiVincenzo. Like that. That's probably not ideal. So you're choosing and building the best lineup you think for that day in cash games. But it's always using the highest projected players. You're not going to find, it's just some poorly projected -5 plus minus salary adjusted value 0% smash guy. It's not going to make the lineup. Not going to give you enough median points. At least enough that it's trying. The optimizer is trying to give you the top 20. So it's most likely not going to show up in the top 20 with a guy like that. Let's see. Here people are talking about Gallinari. Right, that's the type of guy that may project well median-wise for cash games, but his range of outcomes can be much, much wider. Because he could play 8 minutes and do nothing sometimes. And then sometimes he could play 8 minutes and get 32 points in that time. But like Hog Lawrence said, so what is the argument for a suboptimal pivot in cash if you don't care about risk variance? There's no argument. If you believe your model is the best, you believe that you're more accurate in the long run, even by the 0.1 point nothing, then no, there's no argument at all. Just play whatever the math and play the math. There you go. That's profit, my profit over. But when I say the long run, the difference between lineups that are less than a half a point projected, like you're not going to even realize that long run, that EV in the long run. For God, no. I mean, we're talking about thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands. It's going to be a very small percentage. So maybe in your DFS career, if you played for 10 years and I'm going to play the slightly suboptimal by less than a half a point. Like it may end up only mattering for a couple of bucks to you. Right? I mean, like it may end up that way. But theoretically, yes, there's no reason to suboptimally pivot. I always preface it with if you trust your model, if your model is accurate. Or at least more accurate than other people that are playing, right? It doesn't have to be like it's not gonna be it's not gonna be a 1.0 R squared. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect. No model is that, and no model could ever be that perfect. Where the median is the exact outcome of all the players in the player pool. That's never happened. Dreward27 says, however, thought of entering one lineup into a large field tournament on FanDuel just so you could go over lineup reviews with your loyal followers, Apple Juice suppliers. Now, the problem with FanDuel is that we don't get results DB. They don't have publicly downloadable CSVs. So it's hard to go over stuff when Like I just have to search out lineups and stuff. I mean, you can do it. It's maybe less appealing for this type of show. We'd be spending 40 minutes trying to find people's lineups, right? I'd have to be in there, then I have to go in. I have to let me find Squirrel Patrols, one of them out of 150. It's untenable. It's very hard to do a review like that without a tool like Results DB. So that's why I do DraftKings. So it's not that I don't care about FanDuel. It's not that I'm not playing GPPs on FanDuel even. Just that it's just really hard to review it for a show, especially when you just have to hut and peck and look for individual lineups. You may find the one lineup that some sharp player has that guy in, and he's in like none of the other lineups. So how would you ever know that? What other constructions they went with? You'd have to go one by one. We'd be here forever. Let's see. Feel free to ask your questions. There's not, how much review. I was pretty much asking you what happened yesterday, right? I'm always here for the questions, even though, sometimes I repeat the answers, over and over again, but whatever. Let those podcast people worry about it. Right? If you're listening on the podcast, you can't see me waving to you. Well, why aren't you here live? Asking your questions. Let's see. Michael Lingenfelter says, QQ, $100 Showtime had 555 people last night. Saw that Squirrel Patrol and a few other sharps played an optimal projected lineup in this contest. Can you explain why they may have done that? Because they play high volume and it's easier to do so. It's the same reason as playing triple ups. Like if I play on FanDuel, I will put my cash lineup in like the $25 single entry. If I know that like my lineup is not like absurdly duplicated or something like that, then I'm not going to have like 80% owned guys, because it can do well in a smaller field contest, 555 entries, a cash lineup. If it ends up having leverage, like that's the key, is does it end up having leverage? Is my cash lineup going to be a little bit different than most people's cash lineups? Well, that means I'm getting leverage. So why not take advantage of that and play it in a small field single entry contest? Now, the $100 Showtime, like, what happens if you're playing $5,000 in cash? So $100 out of 5,000 isn't that dramatic. So it's like playing a triple up or a quintuple up or something. Like, you're not just doing that in just $100 Showtime. You're just like, no, I'm playing $3,000 of head-to-heads. I'm playing $1,000 in double ups. I'm playing $500 in triple ups. And it's like, okay, throw this lineup into the Showtime also. Okay, whatever. That lineup is in 227 different contests. Some of the sharper players if one lineup type of guys, just do it out of, I guess, laziness. Like, instead of just building multiple lineups for different GPPs, it's like, I'm going to make one lineup. I'm going to enter into everything, and that's it. You could take advantage of that in those smaller field, single entry type of contests. You know that lineups are more likely to look closer to cash lineups. And that's why the ownership of the chalkiest players ends up being chalkier in those types of contests. So take advantage. You have more leverage available to you, right? Your lineup is going to be a lower median, but it have more of a chance at winning first place if the chalk fails, because the chalk will be chalkier. So take advantage of it. But that's the reason why they do it. Same reason why I would. On DraftKings, I've done it before with the Showtime. I'm building a couple of GPP lineups, and it's 658 or something. I still have one lineup to go, and I don't know if I could complete it. All right, and then I just enter. I'll just export and import my cash lineup, and okay, it is what it is, right? Maybe I late swap. Maybe I separate it later and late swap into that lineup. You could do that. Sometimes I do that. And sometimes the cash lineup you're playing, which has some leverage, can actually win a 500-person GPP. I do it in soccer. Soccer, those smaller GPPs are smaller. They're 90, 100, or whatever. But no, it's either because of volume or, I guess, laziness. I guess that's the best way of putting it. Laziness. Let's see. Ronald Coley asks, for your GPPs, you exclude the whole slate of games and only add the people you want in your pool, right? Yeah, that's what I do personally. You don't necessarily have to. A lot of times I'm adding the players back that would have ended up being in all my lineups had I not excluded anyone. Right? Because it's not like I'm excluding a guy. I'm just getting the best projected players in the widest range of salaries and positions. So I have something to work with. Like, okay, here's the core group of 30, 35, whatever for the slate. These are what my lineup should be made of to build high projected and possibly lower owned type of lineups. And then if I see after building and going through lineup HQ that my lineups are still too chalky, maybe I add a couple of, now I go to the B guys. Go, okay, who else can I put in? Or I see that I don't have, I only have 2 small forwards in my pool. Like, do I want to have 50% of each of these guys to make up? Or I'll find a small forward that is now, didn't make the cut the first time, but now makes the cut the second time. Do you have to do it that way? No, I just find it easier to do that way. Tyler Coleman asks, for single entry GPPs and or large field GPPs, is there a cumulative ownership percentage range you feel comfortable at? Trying to find the spot where it's leveraged enough, but not too much either. It's all slate dependent. It's all relative to the slate. Some slates we have guys that are 80% owned. I mean, take a look at yesterday's slate. Yesterday's slate, if you played Walker, Murray, Lee, Allen, Tatum together, Mills, something like that, I mean, we're talking about 60 plus 50 is 110, plus 47, 157, plus 35. It's 192, plus 34. Now we're like at 220 or something. For yesterday's slate, 220 was like more towards the cash lineup type of thing. So maybe in a single entry, you're playing a lineup that's 180. These are blunt numbers. They're the guidelines. So maybe you're playing 180. Maybe you're trying to find in that range. Maybe for large field, you can play lineups that are 140. You can probably also play lineups that are 190, right? Because it depends on who's the lower owned guy in that lineup. That's why there's no exact number. But for this slate, but let's say, just so I could leave it up on the screen, that the ownership on the slate was this, right? I'm going to cut off the top 3. So the highest owned guy in on the slate is 35% owned. So now the cash lineup kind of looks like the top 5 guys or something. 35 plus 34 plus 34 plus 33. So we're talking about 120, 140 plus another 20. So so the cash lineup, the cash chalky type of construction would be around 160. So for a small field single entry contest, maybe you're playing cumulative ownership of 135. Right? It's all relative to one another. Large field, maybe you're playing ones that are 110, 100. Maybe you find some that are 80s. Maybe you could find some that are 130s. 130 on the slate where multiple guys are like 40, 50, 60% owned, that would be very contrarian. Because obviously 110 would equal like 2 of these guys in your lineup. So in order to play a lineup that has 110% cumulative ownership, you're basically fading the 3 chalkiest players on the slate, which is fine. But that's only because they're 60%, 50%, and 47% owned. The 3 chalkiest guys on the slate are in 35, 34, and 33. So relatively, you're doing the same kind of thing, but not the number. How much ownership? In some slates, a high-owned lineup is only 120. And some slates, it's hard. Some slates, if they're small, especially 3-game slate, it's very hard to build a lineup that doesn't have more than 200% ownership sum. So you can't just go by just a number. What's the number? There's no number. It's all relative to the slate. There was an actual number. Would I tell you? No, I'd be printing money. If there was a button to easily just press and make $1 million, I wouldn't be here. Everyone would be doing it. The game would be dead. No one would play DFS anymore. It's been solved. It's done. Here's the button. So it can't be an exact number. Going through the YouTube chat. Greg R says, okay, this is a good point. Based on early optimals today. This is something that I do. Greg R says, based on the early optimals today, looks like the correlating pieces to the Denver, Milwaukee, and Knicks chalk will be relatively underowned. I mean, we don't have ownership up yet. But what that means is that people are going to play the Knicks. They'll play multiple pieces of the Bucks, multiple pieces of the Nuggets, but not the other side of the game. Right? Kings, Wizards, Pelicans. So what that means is that, like, no, it's not, well, I'm not going to play the Knicks. I'm going to play the Kings instead. It's more the fact of, if you're going to play 2 or 3 Knicks in your lineup, why don't you play De'Aaron Fox? Why don't you play Rashawn Holmes? Something like that. If you're going to play Jokic, why aren't you playing Westbrook or Beal or something like that in that lineup for leverage? So instead of playing Jokic, Giannis, you're playing Jokic, Westbrook, or Beal. So they're in the same game. They're correlated to some extent. And if you're going to play Giannis, maybe you play Brandon Ingram in that lineup, who may end up going lower owned. It could be the type of thing where you're just playing one of the Knicks and two of the Kings. You could do that. Well, yeah, but that type of thinking makes sense. If they project well enough and the ownership is low enough. So we take a look here and we go, I'm going to X out all of them. Not X out, but just hide them. So if you're going to play Knicks, here's the Kings. So yeah, De'Aaron Fox isn't that bad. Rashawn Holmes isn't that bad, right? 25, 24%. Buddy Hield. I mean, that's always an adventure. And especially if you're using guard spots, like, why not use Rashawn Holmes? He's using guard spots for the Knicks. Now you have a center spot for that. Okay. If that makes sense in that lineup. Go to the Washington-Denver game. Yeah, Beal and Westbrook pretty much, right? Not much mystery there. And they project fine, 50-plus points. So instead of building a Giannis lineup, you just don't play any Bucks or whatever. And you play Beal or Westbrook instead. It gives you leverage, and it also has, 2 sides of the same game. Now, if that game blows out, you're dead. The lineup sucks. Here you go. If that game goes to overtime, you're gold. Or at least if it's close enough and over the total. Most of the production is on the Wizards is going to go to Beal and Westbrook. And there'll be plenty of people that have Jokic in their lineup without either of them. So take advantage of that. Just understand these types of correlations are very small. Nothing that, like, I know I need to force this in. But given the choice, yeah, I'd rather in a lineup, if I'm going to pay $9K for a player in a lineup that has like Barton and Monty Morris and Jokic or some 1-2 combination of that. It's like, oh, I need a $9K player to fit in this lineup. So I'm gonna play Beal Westbrook. I'm gonna do that. As opposed to Paul George, right? At 8,800, Kawhi Leonard. If they project similarly. I mean, they don't, but if they did, it makes more sense to at least take advantage of that small correlation, if you can. But it's not something you need to force in. You can make groups. You could force it in. But it's not necessary. Correlations in NBA are very weak. So even if you're playing like 2 guys that are like, oh, the 2 guys, they're priced efficiently, can they both hit the ceiling at the same time? Yeah, they can. A little less probability. You don't have to necessarily go out of your way to, like, I need to make sure that if I have this guy, these 3 guys have to be in. You don't have to do that. Let's see. Going to the YouTube chat. Sam Grant says, apparently he must have. Okay, I guess I like the way these guys are talking amongst yourselves. At least there's decent answers in the chat Smart people hang out here. So even if you ask your questions, sometimes you get answered in the actual YouTube chat. Hit the give the YouTube chat helper people a thumbs up. Keep my apple juice cold in the process. Let's see. Yeah, people are talking about projections for cash games or whatever. A lot of models around the industry are very similar, especially in NBA. I mean, it's the lowest variance sport. It's still high variance, but it's the lowest variance out of it. It's easier. It's more projectable. Less big events. No home runs, touchdowns, those types of things. So yeah, as long as you're projecting minutes and usage similarly, most of the time, like the projections aren't going to be that far off. It could be a 1% difference between models. A 1% difference. If you ran the knapsack problem based on a projection set that has a 1% difference, it's quite possible that the top median projected lineup is still the same. Especially when value opens up, especially when there are multiple guys that are mispriced. You see that on FanDuel a lot. Where it's like, well, obviously I'm playing this guy at power forward. He's now starting at center and playing 38 minutes. Like, okay, well, there's one spot gone that nearly everyone's going to have. And because you're playing down in there, now you're paying up in here, and then it kind of all fits in. Let's see. Keith Espinoza. What are the most crowns you could win on a DK mission? I don't know. What are the most? I think the most I've had 1,500 for a $150 contest. At least for me, but I mean, that's the level that I'm playing at. The missions are all catered towards whatever contest that you normally play to some extent. So most of my missions are like between 50 and 150 bucks. And for the requisite crowns, you know, $150 contest, you get 1,200 crowns or something. And the crowns are, if you didn't know, on DK, 550 crowns equals $1. And you get crowns per dollar that you enter. Okay? So every $550 that you enter in contests, you get $1 back. Not really very crowny, right? Once you put it that way, it's like, yeah, it's kind of cheap rewards. It's better than nothing, right? Still better than nothing, right? For every 550 bucks, but also understand that the money that the sites make are from the rake, not from the entry fees. So let's say you play $550 worth of contests to get 550 crowns, which is equivalent to $1. And let's say your effective rake amongst all those contests is 12% or something. Let's say it's 10% or 50. Let's just say it's 15%. I'm trying to do the math in my head easier. 15% of 550 is somewhere around 80 bucks or so, right? 82.50 or something, 87.50, something like that. And you get $1 back. There you go. There's your buck. Now, if you play lower rate contest, 10%, 550 bucks worth of entries is $55. $1 out of 55 is a little less than 2%. So if you're like, oh, would you like to get somewhere between 1.5 to 1 to 2% back of your rake? Sure, why not? Give it to me. So when you put it into that perspective, it's like, okay, it's better than nothing. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people, it's crowns. It's crown season. I got a lot of crowns. What do? They're going to only go down in value. I would highly suggest you just spend your crowns in the contests. Whenever you just enter in the contests. So when you have enough crowns and you can enter a $5 contest, it'll give the little crown thing, little gold coin or whatever on the screen. Just enter with your crowns. It's like airline miles. Then the airlines aren't going to make the miles worth more in the future. They're always going to be worth less. They have no incentive to making them worth more. Worst case scenario, tomorrow they decide they're getting rid of the whole fucking reward program to begin with. Right? Oh, all those crowns up, they don't mean anything anymore. Oh, Out of nothing. No utility whatsoever, right? DK crowns are worth less than actually are which actually has more utilization, crowns on DK or Bitcoin. Crowns I could turn into contest entries, right? Bitcoin, what do? All I can do with Bitcoin is go on Twitter and put rocket ship emojis. That's apparently the only usage of Bitcoin. Apparently that's the only way you to use it. Is that whenever it goes up, you have to go on Twitter and put rocket ship emojis. But a lot of people don't know that about DK crowns. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's like, so when you get 75 crowns, it's like, oh, thanks for like the 18 cents or something, right? It's like, oh, something. It's better than nothing. They don't have to do it. Go through the YouTube chat. Feel free to post any questions before ending the show. There's not much to talk. I mean, I say this every day. A lot of times we get new people. A lot of times I get emails or messages on Twitter, or they listen to the podcast later and it's like, you didn't talk that much about today's slate. It's like, would I have ever mentioned Jeremy Grant being out yesterday? No, of course not, because that didn't happen yet. What can I mention? Everything's going to change. It's basketball. Baseball will be a little bit easier. Oh, let's see. Going through. The apple juice is loose. Let's go through. People are just talking amongst themselves. That's fine. Devin's in the chat. Give a thumbs up. Hit the thumbs for Devin. Devin's, you can't even tell. Eli was here on 2 days ago. People didn't notice. Right? Devin's the best producer. Eli's just learning. Devin's always there. See, he's there with the emojis. Eli wasn't doing the emojis either. Right, okay. Now, Devin's back in his rightful place as the fabulous multitasking producer. Okay. John Peters. If you have any issues with any of the concepts that I explained in the course, you're more than welcome to email me. There's no flaws to any strategy. It's game theory. It's concepts. How you apply them is up to you. Drewer 27, are you talking about Top Shots again? Can people stop talking? I can't not follow it. It's my YouTube. It's in my Twitter stream. I don't have no Top Shots. I like seeing people being tilted on pack drops. Pack drops and basketball players getting them. Josh Hart, someone gifted him one and then he just sold it. What kind of asshole is that? Here's a gift. Okay. Thank you. And then you go to the pawn shop. I mean, is there any tact anymore in this world? You don't do that. Okay. So today, right now, we got some Knicks value. And then we're going to kind of, like I said before, I think it's a matter of you're choosing two between Jokic, Giannis, and Harden, which will make Luka and Harden are going to be the ones that are going to be lower owned, just from a positional eligibility perspective. Because if Rose and Quickly are going to be chalky as value, they fill up guard spots. So once their guard spots are starting to fill up, you pay up at power forward and center, and not at point guard only eligible players like Harden or Luka. I think Harden will still get good enough ownership, but I think Luka will be the lowest one based on our current projections right now. We're like Embiid and Beal and Westbrook. I think that Beal, Westbrook plus Jokic, that gives you leverage and a little bit of correlation in there. Or you play Randall. You play Randall instead of the Knicks chalk. You could do that. There's a decent amount of ways to go. Because if it stays like this, we'll kind of know what the value is. The problem comes in is that 5:30 injury report. None of this matter. I mean, who knows? Luke Walton with Sacramento. Who knows what's going on with Harrison Barnes? He could be sitting. What's going on with Holmes? He could have a tummy ache. Who knows? Could throw this out the window. Or Kyrie Irving's missing. Who knows? Come on. And Joel Embiid has a back problem 10 minutes before the tip-off. Is Porzingis playing? Is he even in? We have him. He's questionable. Who knows if he's playing? So when people say, like, I don't know why you don't talk about today's slate. I did talk a little bit about it, but it's mostly strategy. Referring to strategy questions, we went through some like cash lineup type of stuff. I explained some things. Well, you don't know, but that's the way it is in NBA DFS. That's why you got to be by your computer. That's why you got to pay attention. That's why if I'm not going to be at my computer during the first hour even, how do I play? How do I play thousands of dollars of Volatile? How do I do that? I can't. Maybe I win. Maybe it's fine, but I'm not going to risk that. No, I'm going to play as optimally as I can. And if I can't be at my computer, I ain't going to play. It's just the way it is. I'll play tonight. Tonight we go. Okay, tonight we're good. Tonight we're peachy. Of course, they're all staggered starts, right? 9:30, 9, 8, 7:30, 7:30, 7 o'clock. At least it's only 6 games. At least it's only 6 games. But whatever happens on tonight's slate, that's what I'll be talking about tomorrow, right? So you tune in tomorrow because I'm live. I'm always live. You can hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. So I'm live every weekday. Every weekday, 11 o'clock in the morning. Here on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.